Welcome to The Bridge. Fun conversations on culture, life, and everything in between.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. We are a show that connects East and West. My name is Jason. I'm originally from California in the U.S., and I am currently located in beautiful Wuhan, China. Today with me is BeiBei.
Yes. Hi, Jason. Hi, dear listeners.
Hi.
This is BeiBei from Beijing. It's a very sunny day, very bright.
Find us where you get your podcasts. If you like the show, then consider pushing the like button or giving us 5 stars. Suggestions, comments, anything you would like to share? Email us at welovethebridge@gmail.com. We love the bridge.
Today we are going to be talking about weddings and banquets, but not just in China. I want to talk about the U.S. a lot, because there's so much to talk about weddings in the U.S.
Yeah, what made you think of this topic? Anybody getting married that you know?
We were talking about drinking. And in a previous episode, we were talking about drinking, and I wanted to talk a little bit about weddings because there's a lot of the etiquette, is expected because it's a formal function. So I thought, hey, this is a great a vehicle to use to talk about formal drinking.
Okay, formal drinking. Yes. Well, there are certain things, etiquettes that you follow. Before we get into all the details, can I just have a little bit of a report on the market side of the things?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. Take us away.
I'm into this. So I looked it up. In 2021, the market size of the wedding industry in China was forecasted to amount to 1.7 trillion yuan. I don't know how many zeros there are in this. If you divide that by roughly 6.5 or by 7, you get the dollar amount. It sounds like a lot of money. So it's a slight increase from 1.41 trillion yuan in 2020. That was last year. Well, maybe last year it was a little bit low because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but things have bounded, back to normal. So it seems like a huge industry. Anybody with loads of money you don't know, what to do with. This could also be a good investment. Okay, the end of report.
Maybe I could be one of the hosts and make, if this is a lot of money, I'm going to open my own.
Oh,
wait, I'm from the West.
Yes,
couldn't I open?
That is.
After we talk about how the Chinese wedding has evolved a little bit, I'm going to come back around to how I'm going to open my own business. All right. So, but first I wanted to.
As a wedding host?
Well, I'm not just a host. I could facilitate, a Western style because I'm a Western person. I could, get the look of the church with the little rows of wooden seats and stuff. But instead, at the end, I'll be there and I'll be Elvis. I'll be like, hey. Anyways, I wanted to start with Vegas and Reno. A lot of people.
What's Reno? I know Vegas. What is Reno?
Reno is like the smaller, less expensive Vegas. So it's still Nevada, but it's like just the edge of Nevada before you cross over into California. And a lot of people who can't afford to go to Vegas, they go to Reno. So firstly, you have the Vegas wedding. So you can get all kinds of different weddings. I'm sure some of them look like a church and some of them are with Elvis. So, you can get married and Elvis can be all shook up. Oh, do you? So but a lot of people will get married in Vegas and then they can get a drive-through divorce in Vegas. So it's gosh. I know. Welcome to literally, I think they call themselves Sin City. So yeah, there are all kinds of weird things going on there.
So a quick question. I know about Vegas weddings. I think that's where Britney Spears got married. But my understanding is that these are not real. It's kind of like what you do when you're drunk.
Oh, no, they're real.
It's real?
Yeah.
Oh.
But you will be married at the end of it legally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was just a fun thing to do. You can get a fake wedding or something. It's real. All right.
Well, the thing is, different states in the U.S. have different laws. This is not a federal law thing about how you get divorced and how you get married. So some people get married and there are even movies about it. There's a new movie with Ashton Kutcher where he gets married and anyways, I'm not going to spoil the story for you, but people do get married and then they wake up and they're sober again, I guess, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm married. How did this happen? Well, you can also do this in Reno. So I bring up Reno because I have friends and relatives who actually got married in Reno, and so
was that planned? Or was it an accident or like a moment of, how does it work?
It was planned. It was planned, but it's an affordable way to get married. Because, okay, say you are a Catholic or something. You go to a church, you ask for the church, you have to rent the church, you have to be a member of that church, you have to be baptized or whatever in that church. Getting in a real church or whatever is really a huge deal. Or if you want to rent a facility that's a huge, like you're not in Vegas, you're in Wyoming, or you're in Florida, or you're in California, or wherever, and you want to rent a facility that looks like a big church. It's not a church, and it just looks like a big one. Or you want to rent a church from someone else. It can cost an enormous amount of money. So people go to Vegas, people go to Reno, or people increasingly they have them outside, like on the beach or in a public park, which you have to get permits and stuff. And then there's also going to City Hall, where you actually just get on a list and you get an appointment and you go get married.
You all have to go to the City Hall, right? To get the certificate. And then the wedding is a separate thing.
No, see, that's a different thing. In America, you can get the certificate and sign them at the place you're getting married. So you can go do it in the church. You can sign it as part of the ceremony before or after the ceremony and stuff. So in China, I'm going to go real quickly because I got married in China and we went down to it's like people say the term police station, but it's not a police station. It's like a district, official business registration hall where they don't just do, where we went, they didn't just do marriages. They did other things. And we had to bring pictures of ourselves and we signed all this paperwork and they gave us these red books, which everyone gets. I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, little booklets.
And we got a booklet. The police got a booklet and my wife got a booklet and mine says his and her wife says hers in Chinese. And so now we have proof that we're married and whatever. It says the date and everything. And there's a big clock there.
Right.
And what we did afterwards, and this is a Yantai Shandong thing. This is the city she's in. We took this heart lock and we went to this place where there are thousands and thousands of locks locked to the side of this gate by the beach. And we locked our lock.
That doesn't sound good. Locked our lock.
So we locked our hearts around this thing and then we're married. Yeah. So, that's a separate thing from Chinese wedding. The Chinese wedding, I'm sure you know this. A lot of people get these red books years before they have a ceremony.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's like that because the ceremony, I mean, it's a big thing. It's a big deal. And I can go into I can find pages of documents about the etiquettes and all that. Mine was these days, most couples have a cross of Western and Eastern traditions when it comes to their weddings. Like nowadays, traditionally, the brides will wear like a dress that's like red, bright red. That's the color, an auspicious color in Chinese culture. It's not only pretty and symbolizes prosperity and all that, but also it's like red enough to drive away evil spirits, like in Chinese New Year and all that.
Before we get to the wedding hall, let's slow down. Sure. When your husband to be wanted to marry you, were you inside your parents' home on a bed surrounded by your girlfriends?
We didn't do that.
Let's talk about that because a lot of our American friends, people don't know, and I see this on WeChat all the time. Firstly, people told me about it, and then I see it on WeChat. So the bride to be it sits on like petals or like a big, beautiful blanket. And she's surrounded by all of her girlfriends and they're all dressed up beautifully. And she's dressed in red. And she's, ornate, makeup, everything. And then the groom will show up to the front door of the house and he has to knock on the door with his guy friends and they're all dressed up. And they have to either sweet talk or bribe their way into the house, or they have to pass tests. So they have to answer questions about the bride and things. Once they get into the house, then sometimes there's a tea ceremony, or maybe that comes later. Then they have to fight their way down the hallway. There'll be different girlfriends on post. Okay, you have to answer this question about her, or you have to give me a bribe. So they have to give red envelopes and stuff until they finally get to the door. And then they have to beg to come into the room, all the groomsmen and the groom. They have to beg to come in the room by answering questions and giving bribes and like passing tests and things until they finally get into the room. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, the groom is allowed to, I'm not sure, like kidnap the girl.
Yeah. So that's called like picking up the bride. Okay. So I actually have information on that. In the morning of the wedding day, the groom will go to the bride's home to escort her back to the wedding. So usually he would have like a line of cars. And usually they get like fancy, nice cars for that. And with like huge red bow ties on the cars or fresh flowers. And you will notice they are different from normal cars. It's obvious that it's like a wedding procession, usually on the way to get the bride. So, and first of all, the groom has to, quote unquote, break into the door. The door is not just like thrown wide open, say, oh, come in and get your bride. Not like that, okay? The process has to be made difficult. Sometimes, as you mentioned, there will be bridesmaids guarding the door. And I've seen cases on the news. People, they come up with all kinds of fun tricks. Like I've seen the key to the door frozen into a ice block. So to get the key to open the door, the groom has to like literally melt the ice block to get the key. And recently I saw another one. This must be the wedding of some crazy nerds. Like bridesmaid guard at the door holding a test booklet. Let's say the LCAT or something. What's that, like SIT?
Yeah.
Or something much harder than that. And the groom is supposed to answer a series of questions to make sure maybe they're postdocs, who knows, getting married. So you need to first get to the door. The test could be, intelligent tests or physical, whatever. And then the groom must hand out prepared red pockets. Now, by red pockets, we mean just cash. Cash put in a red paper envelope to the friends and especially the bridesmaid. And then when in the meantime, the bride, dressed all in this like traditional red Chinese costume, awaits without shoes on.
Yes.
Do you know about that? The shoes part? Like they're supposed to wear red, usually high heels, like silk shoes or something. So the groom, let's say the groom goes inside, he must first find the hidden shoes and then help to put the shoes on. And people get creative when it comes to where to hide those shoes. And I've read in the news that some people, they hid it in the pillows or somewhere, in the closets everywhere. It's supposed to be a fun time. So after they get the shoes, after the groom passes all of these tests, he passes the bouquet of flowers to the bride. And only after the groom has found out the shoes and put them on, then he literally, carries her out of her room and all the way to the car, and in which,
I have a question.
Sure.
Is it at the wedding or is it the house? Because I understand the groom and the bride are supposed to serve tea to mom and dad. When does this happen?
For my wedding.
Is this at the wedding?
It was at the wedding.
At the wedding.
So, yeah, so that would be like, the Chinese part of the wedding. Mine was like a mixture of Western and Chinese style. Some people, they do it. Like for my cousin, I think they did that in-house while he was picking her up. So basically, they call it the tea ceremony. And the main theme is to pay respect to the parents of the bride. So my cousin, my aunt and uncle, I think they were sitting on the sofa, and my cousin and her husband-to-be, they were literally kneeling on the floor in front of my aunt and uncle, and they have to like kowtow 3 times to show their respect.
I mean, put their head on the floor, touch their head to the floor.
Yeah, it seems pretty extreme, probably to Western eyes, but in China, it's a very it's part of traditional culture, and it's very normal for younger generation to show respect that way on, say, the seniors' birthdays or New Year Eve, when the seniors hand out red envelopes and all that. So anyhow, and then afterwards, someone else will carry over 2 cups of tea, and then the groom is supposed to offer the tea to his mom and dad in-laws, right? And then to say thank you and things like that. And then, the mom and dad of the bride will drink a sip of the tea, put it down, and then give him a red envelope. Usually these are like thick ones. They're like, a stack of cash inside. It's just like a little segment of the ceremony to show respect. Kind of the groom telling the parents that, okay, now I'm going to take your daughter home. Sorry. And I'll take care of her. I promise I'll take care of her.
So is this kind of this stack of cash? Is this like a dowry?
Well, see, my wedding never involved any of that, but I do have information on that. There is the bride prices and dowries. And so the groom-to-be should send the bride price to the groom-to-be's family before the wedding. And then the bride price may vary in different regions. Here I have an example. In Guangdong, you can set other things plus cash gifts. And after receiving the bride price, the bride-to-be will send the return gift, which is the dowries. So it seems to me that they're cross-giving, like they're giving each other money. So I don't really get the point. I guess my impression is the guy's family is supposed to offer some kind of cash gift for the bride's family. And I think the tradition is still popular in, let's say, in the countryside, but not so much in the cities because young couples are a lot more independent, I guess. And they probably think, what's the point of this? It's, I guess, not really the nicer part of the traditions. I mean, I consider. So we didn't have that.
I went to a few Chinese weddings because I've lived here quite a while, and one thing I noticed is that the people who were invited to the wedding also provide red envelopes. I was in Beijing.
Oh yes.
I think because I was, you remember our friend Morris. Morris gave me advice on how much to put. I think we put 888 RMB into an envelope, and that's what we gave to the couple. Actually, they didn't even receive it. When we got there, there was like a check-in place with 4 or 5 ladies sitting there, and we gave it to them and then signed our name that we had arrived. So we gave the money to these ladies. Presumably the money made it back to the bride or groom's family or something.
It will.
But then we just went.
Everything will be recorded.
So what I heard was basically that people who have a wedding make a little bit of money because like the cost of putting on a wedding is not cheap in America or in China. So it costs quite a bit, having the huge banquet and all of the alcohol and the food and all the clothing and like the renting the space and all of that stuff. And so people bring money and it pays for the wedding. And it also gives a little bit of like starter cash to the new couple or something.
I think for my wedding, it came out roughly even. I didn't really calculate it that carefully. We spent a lot for the wedding. I mean, for a small family, but relatives and friends, they all brought over these red envelopes. And somehow it just happened to even things out. Because I think at that time, well, that was like 10 years ago, a lot of my coworkers, they gave somewhere around like, it come out to be a nice number, 999. Like my cousin gave me 999. So 9 sounds like 9 in Chinese, which sounds the same as long lasting. So basically, like my cousin, she gave me like 999.99. She had to go to the bank to get like these smaller notes. So there are a lot of like 9s in the number. And also it's common to give like 666, something like a 6 is a lucky number. And what you gave was very nice, 888. The sound of 8 is ba, which in Cantonese sounds like fa, which means, good fortune with money. Like you got loads of money. So it's a good wish.
What I was told is just whatever you do, don't give 4s.
No.
Because which 4 sounds like death. Is that right?
Exactly. So that's a number to be avoided at all times. Like if you want your bike to be safe, or if you don't want your bike to get stolen, just get a license plate with all 4s on it. Nobody will touch it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try that.
I know that in the States, the couple will have a wedding registry, and then they will upload like the gifts they want. In China, it's a little different. People don't give as many gifts. Relatives will do because they know like what the couples need. But for other people, it's hard to tell what the couple actually needs. And you don't want too much useless stuff, right, in the house. So it's just so convenient to be, to just give cash. And the couples can use that.
A lot of weddings can be really expensive. So that's part of why like giving a nice gift is important. So couples will, like you said, they'll have a registry, and it can be online now, where so like you just go to a website and you can pick one of these 50 kind of things that the couple said they might need. And so you might be buying them like candlesticks or like, I don't know, a new appliances for their kitchen, or exactly. All kinds of things that they might want. Some other couples won't actually do the registering exactly what they want thing. What they will do is just say, we want something from Sears. And so like, I don't know if even Sears even exists anymore actually, or JCPenney or whatever. And you go to the catalog and you order from there. And some couples will not say anything, especially the wealthier couples will not say what they
don't need anything.
No, but they will still expect you to gift, but they don't tell you what they want. So in these cases, you're just expected to, I guess, spend according to what you have or whatever, and then provide some kind of a gift. And actually, at the Western weddings, you get these gifts upon arrival. So when you walk in, you get a little gift bag, and inside the gift bag, everything is labeled about the wedding. So you get like a little note that invites you, and maybe some candies, and like maybe some perfume or lipstick, chapstick, any kind of small little kind of gift bag that you get for arriving and being at the wedding.
Oh yeah.
But increasingly, But increasingly now, a lot of couples are doing really unique weddings because it is the 21st century and people are moving away from that. And there's very few people with enough money to have a huge movie wedding anymore. So one of the weddings that I went to in the States about 10 years ago was a potluck wedding. Now, a lot of people in America are like, oh, my ears hurt. But a lot of other people are like, yeah, that makes sense. So what that means is the couple provided the cake. So they spent a lot of money. They got this really big, beautiful 3-tier wedding cake that is absolutely gorgeous, that tasted like the most sugary thing you've ever had. They put Starbucks to shame. But then like all of the guests brought food. So they set up like a soup kitchen style like serving area, and everyone there, like I'm serious. Yeah. So people served food for all of the guests, and like there was some, older people that did most of the serving. And then like, people had lasagna and all these other things that they brought themselves. So this helped the couple not spend so much money. And I think that, these people were probably at church or something. So they were all really knew each other really well. But like a lot of people are trying to do like cost saving style weddings, which is why I started out with like Reno, because a lot of Californians now, Reno is a lot closer than Vegas and it's a lot cheaper than Vegas. They will just drive up to Reno with their relatives and have a wedding there.
Well, I've been married for 10 years. And sometimes I think about, is it worth it to spend that much money on the wedding? I mean, like, sometimes I think yes, because I think the most important thing is a way to tell your relatives and friends that, hey, this major thing has happened in my life. And it's just a nice way of telling them. It doesn't make marriage any less hard. But it can literally be the happiest day of your life. And things might just go downhill from that day on. But still, it's something nice to think, to kind of reminiscence about, and a lot of good memories. Oh, I was going to say that you reminded me that at major events such as weddings and other things in China, there is a return gift. There's usually a package of small things, but small but nice, thoughtful gifts for your guests, for them to take home. Like I remember in the countryside, it could be something very practical, like nice towels and blankets.
Wow.
Like people, whatever, or soap and things like in the countryside. In the city, that would be like weird. Like you can think of some fancy nice candles or fancy soap and things like that, so that your guests have something nice to take home. But can I just say a little bit about potluck wedding or dinner?
Sure.
The idea of, not even weddings, the idea of a potluck dinner for the older generation, like more traditional Chinese people, it's kind of odd. It's like, I'm inviting you over for dinner, but why don't you bring the food? And like in Chinese culture, that's like, huh? Especially for a wedding, because especially in the countryside, when people go to these major events, that's, the whole village knows, they go for the banquets, right? For the festivity, for the fun. And it would be really odd if they have to, roll up their sleeves and cook and then bring that to the wedding. But usually in the countryside, they would hire a cook. There are cooks that, take care of such things. They probably will arrive the day before, start preparing, and then on the day of the wedding, there will be 20 tables or even more. And every table has the same food. And all your relatives and villagers and, distant people from the family, they'll come over. It's a very good time to reunite. Like for my wedding, it was literally the last time that my aunts and uncles all came together before my grandmother passed away. So even though it was a lot of hassle, some of them live in the countryside and they have motion sickness and all that, but still they made it. And my grandmother was there too. She was already, I think, in her 90s, 91, I think. And then it turned out she passed away a few months later. So it turned out that it was the last gathering where she saw all of her kids. And so I think that was a very meaningful thing to do, even more than the fact that it was my wedding. So in that way, I think it was a very, very, very special time. For what other reason can she get all her kids together? She has 6 kids, spread all over the place. Some in the States, some in rural China, some in the cities. And it was also, the first time that one of my uncles, he doesn't like, formal dresses and all that. But for my wedding, he actually went to a tailor. And I think he spent thousands of RMB for a brand new tailor-made suit. That, in all his 60 years of life, he never wore anything so formal. So that was, something
special,
very
special.
And something nice to think about. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the Chinese weddings I went to. I went to a Chinese wedding in a town in Shandong that was not too far from Yantai. I don't remember the name. It's not Weihai, but it's another smaller town. And we went there, and like you said, all the food was served at the tables was the same. But what I noticed at this time, and this was years ago, this is before the government started telling people not to waste as much food. They served all this food, and we were like, wow, this is a lot of food. So we start to eat.
Right.
And then they start taking away the food before we finish it. And serving more food, and then serving more food, and then taking that food away and serving more. There was so much. It was enough food to feed the party that was there 3 or 4 times over. And you know what? There was another thing that,
it's
well,
bad.
I mean, I didn't mind that so much. I thought it was a little opulent, but what I did, I found weird was towards the end of the total ceremony, which we should talk about a little bit later, was that we were starting to wind down the ceremony, and people from outside started coming in and taking the food.
What?
So it was people
odd.
who were not, I thought this was a little peculiar, but people who were not guests started coming in to the ceremony and started taking away and packing the food away. And I thought, what's going on?
Yeah,
they were, do
they work for the restaurant?
No, I think that they were just random people, and no one had I guess the wherewithal, or I don't know what the right word is, to just be like, no, you can't do this. So that people also just didn't seem to care. People were just like, whatever, we're not going to eat this. So there were these there was a big 50 people there all together, maybe at this wedding. But then there were 4 or 5 or 6 people from outside that just started coming in and packing food away. People just looked the other way about it. And I thought, maybe these people are really needy. So,
That's a little weird. I have to say.
I'm definitely not going to, I'm the one foreigner here at the wedding. I'm certainly not going to be the one that's like, put that down, sir. Yeah. So I was just like,
yeah, well, good for you. Good for you. But in a way, it's a good thing because all this food, otherwise it's going to be wasted.
Right, yeah.
But I have to say that's very unusual. Now, what is more common though, especially in the countryside, because for these banquets, they're, as you said, opulent. They want layers and layers of dishes, like all kinds of meat, fish, ducks, whatever, desserts. Sometimes the guest will bring something like plastic bags or some other containers to take the leftovers home. Now, usually these are villagers that have known each other for a long time, not strangers, because you don't really want to take, strangers' saliva home, whatever. But it's a way of preserving. And I think I'm happy that nowadays people have calmed down a little bit about the amount of food that's supposed to be served at these major events, because it's very, very, very wasteful. But in China, even when it's just a home gathering, you always want a little extra food. If at the end of the gathering, all your plates are clean, that's a signal that you didn't prepare enough. Now, you don't want whole plates left untouched, but you want a little bit of something left on each plate. maybe one or two clean plates that, popular dishes, and that's also a compliment. But you definitely want a little more than enough. At least in the Chinese culture. You don't have to rush to finish your own plate of food, because then more will be piled on, as you probably have noticed. But it's supposed to be really festive time. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, and you probably can shed more light on this than I can, because I've only been to a couple weddings here in China, but the wedding in China is kind of like a mix. So at some point I saw that the bride, who's really the main part of the show, it's like what she's wearing and stuff. She was wearing one dress that's red, and then she went away and she came back and she was dressed in a white dress, and it was like a big with the big veil and like the big poofy, so like it was very Western looking.
Gown.
Yeah. And then they had like a ceremony of sorts. I'm not sure, because it was all in Chinese. I didn't really understand.
The tea offering ceremony?
Well, there was that, but there was also in the West, they have like a priest, or maybe someone who is pretending to be a priest. I'm not sure, just someone who to ordain the wedding. In the Chinese weddings I went to, there was, I would describe him as a host, because it seemed like a TV show, because he was like making people do things. Like he made some of the groomsmen come up and sing a song, and then he made the groom drink some. He had to drink a beer in a fast amount of time, or something. And so there's all these these like things that they had to do. And the host was very much like
creative,
da 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 da, while he was holding a microphone. And so it seemed like it was a show. And so I thought that was really interesting. It was very much like a show with an audience, and sometimes people were called up from the audience to do various things. And most of the show part happened while the bride was away changing dresses.
To fill the time, I guess. Yeah. So the host, it's he or she would be an MC of sort. Usually it's a he, and it's a nice side profession for people. They make a decent amount of money, and they run the show, basically. They get, just like any major event, there are all these, procedures, one after another. He just kind of follows all that. And there are parts where people will sing, or there are parts where the bride or the groom or the parents, the in-laws, usually they give a little speech. I think same as the wedding, right? Kind of the wedding toast. Exactly. Yeah, this wedding toast.
Yeah.
So, but the thing about weddings these days in China is that it's usually a mixture of the two. And to be honest, I am personally surprised. The bride, like the wedding dress, the white, beautiful wedding dress, has become so popular because, traditionally, major events in the villages, there are only two kinds, right? We call them the red one and the white one. And you can probably guess which is which.
Yes.
So
the funeral.
Right, that's the white one. And the red one is...
And the white is the symbol of death.
Exactly. So in the village, back in the days, the bride is like, from top to bottom, from head to toe, it's just covered in red. That's the auspicious color. So I'm actually a little surprised that, I don't know since when, but weddings nowadays, all the brides come out in their wedding gowns, beautiful wedding gowns. But usually... in the middle of the wedding, or for certain parts, like I changed into a red qipao. So that's the what do you call that? It's a very tight traditional Chinese dress. Like mine doesn't fit anymore. Usually tailor made. It shows your curves and all that. I changed into that for the tea ceremony. So where we brought the tea to our own parents and also our in-laws. That's when it's not just offering tea and receiving a red envelope, thick red envelope. It's also when you change the titles. So that's
so the tea ceremony is the official actual wedding part. That's the marriage part.
It's part of the wedding. I think they're all like different parts, but this one is important because it's when you are offering the tea that you call your mother-in-law mom for the first time. So I don't know about your family, but in China in general, like you never call elders by their names. I know that in American culture, sometimes you can call your parents by their first names or your parents-in-law, mom or dad-in-law by their first names.
I would never call my mom by her given name.
Like here, people just like freeze.
It would be so weird. Yeah.
Right? It would be weird for you, right? But I know like from watching these TV shows from the States, it seems like some people, they do that. So during the tea ceremony, you offer the tea, let's say, to your wife's mom, and that's when you 改口, that you start calling her mom, mother. But so before that,
what's guy mean?
To change
mouth.
口 is like mouth. Change mouth, it's change the way you speak. So because before the wedding, you probably call her by auntie, right? Auntie so and so.
Wow.
And then at the wedding, when you offer the tea, you start calling her mother, and you start calling your father-in-law father. And ever since that, like I call my mother-in-law mother. Well, actually, I call her mother, but I call my mom just mom. It's still, slight difference, but still, from that day on.
In the Chinese, what's the difference between mother and mom? You mean like ma?
Well, ma, I would call my mother-in-law mama. So there are two mas. But my own mom, I just say mom or ma. It's a lot more casual. So I think that's pretty significant. And what do you call your
I call her
wife's mom?
They told me to call them that.
Yeah? Okay.
You reminding me of Western wedding, because like we keep talking about the symbol of this and the symbol of that. There's a person that typically takes the bride down, or traditionally, I should say, down the aisle.
Okay, down the aisle, not take it down.
So they step on their right foot. So when they walk together, they both begin on their right foot because they want to get everything started off on their right foot. And then the bride's father delivers her and lets her go. And then the groom takes her up to the person who's going to conduct the wedding. So that is when...
Well, in China, that's the witness, the witnesses.
No. Well, the person that actually says the words are not the witnesses. The audience are the witnesses in the West. And so, but what I mean, when the father lets go of his hand, that's him passing her to the other family.
Right. Oh,
and that's when he's literally we call it giving her away. So he's passes his daughter on to this other man who then takes her hand.
We did that at our own wedding. Like the first part of our wedding was pretty Western. It wasn't in a church. It was like outdoors. And I walked down so-called an aisle, surrounded by family and friends with my dad. He walked me down, right? And then basically, quote unquote, gave me to my husband to be.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple who were our witnesses. So they would read out the things, basically little procedure where we each said our vows.
Oh, you did? You have vows. Dude, is that traditional?
I'm not too sure if that's the Chinese traditional. I think
but it's just the way it's kind of done now.
Yeah. I guess.
You don't have to read your entire vows, but can you give me like one or two examples of the kinds of things you have in your vows?
See, I don't remember
in China
anything I said.
You just blanked.
Yeah. I do remember something my husband said, but he has not really fulfilled.
Okay. New topic.
It's okay. I remember him saying that he will consider every small thing that I ask him to be, major things, big things, and he'll pay attention to that. That has not happened. So maybe that's why I remember it. I can still find the paper version of the vows somewhere. It's probably buried somewhere along with my very expensive wedding dress. See, all the things, all the money we spend, all the attention we pay to the wedding, as I said, they don't help very much with everyday living, but it's fun memory, right? And it's kind of an attitude you have that I consider this to be very, very important. And I think I should be responsible in telling my family and relatives that I have made this commitment, and my life will be forever different from this point on. So it has its significance. But the vows, yeah, they don't do much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to confess something to you, and it's not much of a story as much as it's an anti-story.
Anti-story?
And that when my wife, it's an anti-story. It's the exact opposite of a story because nothing happens.
Okay.
My wife and I, we decided to get married. We were like, oh, I proposed because I thought a proposal was a big deal. I actually proposed in the Emperor's Garden next to Gugong. So you know how there's a park next to if you're looking at the Forbidden City, there's a park on the left side and there's a park on the right side.
Right.
We went into the park on the right side, which is like the Emperor's personal garden.
Nice.
And I proposed in there. And she was like, yeah, sure. Okay. It's like,
wait. She can't just be like, did she know, or was it a surprise?
she knew that we were serious. And she knew that I was going to propose very soon. So when I did it, she was just like, yeah, okay, cool. Because I was like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Now we're engaged. Here you go. And I gave her
tears?
She's not like that. My wife is very not like teary-eyed, sentimental type of person. Anyways, I gave it to her, and she was like, okay. And it was actually my mom's wedding ring. So my mom's wedding ring that my father used to propose to my mom. And then my mom eventually replaced it with something much more opulent later. So she was like, Jason, you take this. It'll be like a family heirloom. So I used my mom's diamond and gold and everything. We had it polished really nice, and it was clean and brand new. And then I used that to propose. And she was like, cool. Now, can we go to Ho Ha? I want to hang out there. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So anyways, I tell you, my wife is not very sentimental for a reason, because, I was like, I don't need a wedding. And she's like, yeah, I don't need a wedding. So we didn't have a wedding. And to this day, her mom and dad are still asking us to have a wedding. Like, it's something that we were like, whatever, but they didn't get over. They're still not over it. And at least once a year, we get asked, like, oh, please have a wedding. Please have a wedding. We will pay for everything. All you have to do is show up. And so sometimes I think about it, but it's been like, we've been married for 7 years. Like, I'm thinking it's late in the game for this, folks.
Right. It's like my mom and her wish that I go to graduate school to get a PhD degree. She hasn't mentioned it for 2 or 3 years now, because I think she just gave up. She sort of thinks it's like hopeless. But prior to that, every year, whenever the chance, anything close to that pops up, she would say, I'll pay for everything. You just go get a degree in anything you want. You can major in philosophy if you want.
Oh, burn, philosophy majors. Burn.
Yeah. It's actually very, very interesting. But, hey, if ever you change your mind, there's a whole industry supporting it. It could turn out that all you need to do is just show up for the wedding, dressed in a nice suit and all, if you guys are up to that. But it's a day of work. Yeah, it could be fun.
I mean, may cave. I don't know. Actually, I'm not like set against it or anything. It's just like we're never in Yantai, and like, I don't know. The setting up the whole thing sounds like a big issue. We did go and register. I mean, we're legally married, and we've been legally married for a long time.
Good.
And we go to we try to be respectful. We show up for Chinese New Year at their house, although I think it might be at my house this year.
That's important. Oh, so your house, as in the States?
No. I mean, I mean, where we live here in Wuhan, beautiful Wuhan, China.
Oh.
They may.
But then your parents-in-law can come over.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. Right now, my wife's mom is living here. So that's why we were just thinking all we would need is dad and grandma to like have it here.
Right.
So we might, I'm not sure what's going to happen. It's really up to my wife. Whatever my wife and her family decide, that's what we're going to do. So we may go back there. We may come here. It doesn't,
nice. I was going to say something interesting about traditional weddings. So the bed setting, do you know anything about that? So this is like more traditional. I don't know if people do it nowadays. It's like, back in the time when people lived in villages, it's like a major event, right? Villagers and your neighbors will come over. And usually one day before the wedding, a commonly known fortune blessed person will set the bed with the 4 like auspicious nuts, including peanuts, walnuts, lotus nuts, and red dates. And some, they do rice. So they will like just throw it on the bed.
On the bed?
And on the bed, there's supposed to be like new bedding, right? Like we had this
Mm-hmm.
new bright red quilts and blankets and pillows with like, flowers and Mandarin ducks patterns on top.
Yeah.
Because Mandarin ducks are like, they mate for life. It's a symbol of romance. So these nuts and rice, they are a sign of, what's the word? Like you have a lot of kids. Like you'll have no trouble reproducing.
Just lay a few eggs.
Because peanuts like peanuts. Have you ever pulled fresh peanuts out of the ground?
No.
It comes out in like bunches.
Huh.
Yeah. So basically just saying have lots of kids.
Huh.
And I forgot what red dates. In Chinese, red dates is 红枣. And 早sounds the same as early. So it's like a wish that you guys have kids early and lots of them. So obviously it doesn't really apply to the modern era. But back in the days, in the villages, they want kids and lots of them, like right away.
I gotta
So
make sure to keep dates and peanuts away from my bed.
Out of the bedroom. See, hey, you remind me of these fun videos I saw the other day. You know how in the West you're supposed to throw the bride's bouquet of flowers backwards? So whoever, whichever bridesmaid that catches it supposedly will be the next one to get married. Now, I saw this video. The bride was throwing the flower backwards, and then the next second, all the bridesmaids scattered. They just ran for their lives. Nobody wants to touch that. And just a few days ago, I saw a similar version at a Chinese wedding. Like they just ran. So nowadays, people, I know that they're having second thoughts, weddings and babies. Not so much.
People's career, I think, means so much to them now. People don't just work for money now. I think people really work because they want to make a mark on society. And a lot of jobs are built towards people having an impact on other people's lives. And so, well, I'm not against marriage. Obviously, I'm really happy that I'm married. I'm happily married. And if I wasn't married, I would find my wife again and marry her again.
Aww,
because I like being married.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I always had a best friend. I always had friends, but I always had one best friend. For me, the idea of being married was like, this is a permanent version of that like feeling. Instead of moving to a new town and needing to make a new best friend, I'll just bring her with me for the rest of my life.
That's so romantic.
And so like, I'm very happy.
She should hear this. But maybe she'll be less emotional than I am right now. But still, I think she will think it's really sweet. And speaking of having an impact, I mean, like getting married, that's like the biggest impact you can have on someone's life. And that's both like positive and negative. It's a mixture of both. But I think nowadays, younger generation, it's not just about work. It's about living their own lives, just like living for your own sake instead of, I guess I can sum it up as more individualistic. Like my parents' generation, you need a really good reason to not get married. Okay. And you better have a really good reason not to have kids. Nowadays, it's like people don't worry as much. They're actually, not only are parents worried, even the country is worried because young people are just not crazy about getting married nowadays, right? They can live very comfortable lives on their own. And also with the housing price and all, we talked about it the other day.
Yeah.
It seems like to get married, you need like a nice apartment, you need to get a nice car. It's just a lot of work is involved. So people are, and I'm sure you've been to South Korea. I think South Korea probably has like, the lowest birth rate. I don't know compared to what, but they have like, it's a serious social problem. I think I read it somewhere that if things go on like that in South Korea, it will be like the first country to disappear from the planet.
Wow.
They'll just, stop reproducing enough. And China can't get on that path. So now they're, they want to offer young people other options. If you can't afford a decent apartment, then we'll make it easy for you to rent and more affordable to rent.
We talk about this issue a lot, and I think it's really interesting because I read a statistic that the U.S. birth rate is the lowest it's been in 50 years or something. I think that, China's concerned, and maybe for a good reason, but like also the last few years, the birth rate in most developed nations has dropped to the lowest it's been in decades, like South Korea, Japan, the United States. It was already declining, but the recent, a lot of people thought, people are trapped in their homes during the pandemic. They're going to reproduce more. But what happened was the exact opposite. Birth rates declined by a higher percentage for that period of time than ever before.
And divorce rates went up because couples who could have, stayed apart a little bit, gave out each other a little bit space. Now they're, stuck together day after day, month after month, and they get so sick of each other. I think that, the divorce rate went up in places where they were, stuck at home for a long time. And I think that's understandable. We all need our personal space. Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to just ask you because I think it's famous in the world that in the West, we love honeymoons. So people get married and then they spend 2 weeks or 4 weeks going to some tropical paradise place where they I guess this is the equivalent of throwing all of the nuts on the bed kind of thing, where they're expected to consummate the new family arrangement. So I was wondering, in China, is this something that people do? They go for a vacation together? Yeah, it's
actually a direct translation of honeymoon. Honey is meat, right? Meat, like sweet honey. Yeah, and moon is translated into yue, so it would be a mi yue, and that's why for the longest time I thought that honeymoons last for a month because the last character moon yue means also a month. And then somewhere along the way, I found out that, okay, no, yeah, you wish. So you just get a little bit of vacation. It's very common. And people usually they to travel somewhere. Yeah, have fun. And then, come back. It's work and the real life starts, right? After the honeymoon.
Well, they also have the honeymoon period, which is usually considered to be 6 months to a year, where everyone in the West considers that the couple probably gets along wonderfully. So that first 6 months to a year where everything is wonderful before the reality of, hey, who is this other person in my house?
No. Why did you pull the bowl? Did you wash the dishes? Did you take out the garbage? Oh, goodness.
You went to work, you left the house, but you didn't take the garbage out. The garbage was by the door.
Exactly. So you are familiar with all that, right?
Yes. Take the garbage out. When it's by the door, it must be taken out.
And I mean, there are still, I don't know if we have time or not, there are still other Chinese etiquette, which actually, there is a formal name for that. This is back in the Zhou dynasty, started 3,000 years ago. There was the 3 letters and 6 etiquette. There was 6 wedding etiquette, starting with the matchmaking. Well, we didn't have time for that part because matchmaking used to be, back in the days in traditional Chinese culture, in villages, this was a profession, right? You have to, and then you provide the date of birth and birth hours to see if you and your husband or your wife, your signs match. It took me years to find out that my husband, this is rough. This is not the serious thing. It's more like a joke. So I read, this is years after we got married, I came across a chart of zodiac signs and supposedly it gives out which zodiac signs match and which are, 30% good for marriages, which are 90% suitable for marriages. And it turned out that my husband and I, we don't really match. Well, I knew by that point. I didn't need the zodiac signs to tell me.
Oh no, no.
He's a tiger and I'm a monkey. And so you can imagine tigers and monkeys. They're not. But the question is which animal is supposed to match with a tiger? Right? Does tiger really match with any zodiac signs?
Well, I know a child's story about a mouse and where it pulled a thorn out of a tiger's paw and then they were friends.
Oh, mouse. Oh, okay. That could work. Or just down straight, sheep or rabbit or something because they're so timid so that they don't challenge the tiger.
It sounds like the tiger's going to eat the sheep. I don't know. I'm just...
Yes. Well, I know. But see, for monkeys, we don't take that, right? We don't take threats well.
You know,
and we'll jump to the tree or we'll like scratch you or tickle you, whatever.
I think that please make a note of this because we are out of time. I want to do one about Zodiac sometime. You know, I want to do an episode specifically about that. We could talk about,
it's fun.
you know, matchmaking as a part of that. And we can include, so we can give our listeners a little tease of something we're going to talk about in the future. And we'll bring this up soon.
All right. So if you're interested in Chinese animal zodiac signs, stay tuned. It might just be our next show. All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, our listeners.
Thank you so much, BeiBei.
All right. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.